Hi, I'm making this video, and this is the second video after I've uploaded my first video. Just thanking everyone on their help and support on finding more about Shake Rag and Elvis Presley and how my grandparents grew up. This second video, I just want to make a quick video just on my personal thoughts on the Baz Luhrmann film that came out. That was a complete shock to us. So when the film came out about a year ago, we always heard that Elvis Presley grew up right next door to different black families, but we just didn't know how close or even if it was true. But the great shock to us and a lot of other black families was that most of the town was integrated. And through my research this past year, a lot of different areas or sections of town were integrated or not as segregated as different southern Mississippi counties, even as far back as the year 1900. I mean, one of the towns where my grandma McKinney, my great grandma Annie's family lived at, it was like mixed. It was like white and black. And even though there was still a lot of like racism or different issues at the time, this is still very unique. And I know I talked to Roy Turner and a few other, Elvis experts, and they said that was very unique for the town. So, we started researching and we started finding out more information about him. And I thought that it was interesting because this film was very different from what I have always heard before. I didn't know if my grandparents were telling me were true. I didn't know if Elvis lived in a black neighborhood. It seemed like ever since I was a kid, a lot of that stuff was always erased or, talked down or, not even shown at all. I know, to even do research for this book, I looked at that Kurt Russell film from the 1970s, and they had one from like the early 90s of some guy from Saved by the Bell. And I'm not at all saying that the movie directors did a bad job at all, but there was like no mention of a black neighborhood or Elvis going to a black church or any of that influence at all. So this was the first film that we actually saw the real story according to our family and a lot of other families, and like the Presley and Smith family said is the closest thing so far to the real truth, to his closest real story. Now, I know a lot of content creators say, oh, well, there's a lot of inaccuracies in the film, but there's been inaccuracies for quite a while, and they've taken some liberties on things. But just recently, this is the closest thing to Elvis Presley's real life from what we knew, from what Priscilla knew, and from what Bill Smith knew. So I always tell people this, and I've written this a ton of different places. The Elvis film from Baz Luhrmann he did a very good job of researching and trying to figure out, was this stuff true and how to create this. So a lot of the beginning parts of the movie is true. It's completely true from what I know in the photos I've seen, the first 15, 20 minutes. So I don't see any inaccuracies on that. I mean, I know some people may have some doubts on it, but it's true. Um, they definitely could have went a lot more in depth, but he didn't really know the full story, and a lot of guys didn't know the full story until now. We have a lot more records in the museum. Now I can, we can share a lot more things, with you guys. But I always tell people this: the movie is split up into three different ways. So it's split up from when Elvis is about 0 years old until about 13 or 14, when our family knew him, and his parents when they were sharecroppers in the 1930s and 40s. By 1950, my grandpa and Sam Bell said, they didn't really see Elvis Presley much after that, and he was a superstar. And I always say part two is a little bit more like Bill Smith and his dad Vernon, and like the Sun Studios and all that kind of cool stuff of him grinding it out in Memphis, and him rising to be a international superstar. And for me, part three of the movie is Priscilla Presley's personal story of her marriage to Elvis Presley, and of his different girlfriends, like maybe like Linda Thompson, just their personal, and Elisa Marie's personal story of this is the man that we saw and we loved. So that's how I would kind of categorize this new movie. It's not entirely bad. I think Baz Luhrmann did a really good job at trying to tell so far the realest story that he could tell. I think that everybody gave him a little bit too much slack on that just because they didn't know the real story when it first came out. I know a lot of people were shocked. So I just hope that more stuff comes out soon. I know they're planning a second movie and a new cartoon series. And, Elvis Week's coming up. So you guys will have plenty of stuff to share. But I just want to share my personal perspective on the movie. I just say it's split up into three parts. So just think about it like that. It's not completely false, but it's three parts of different people who knew Elvis Presley at different times in his life, and we wouldn't know each other at all if that makes any sense. But that's how you kind of need to think of the movie a little bit. And we'll talk to you guys later.